I grew up thinking I was just a regular kid in a regular family. Mom, dad, older sister, a golden retriever named Max. You know, the cliché kind of normal. But lately, everything feels off, like reality has been quietly unraveling behind the scenes, and I'm just now starting to notice. It all started a few months ago, at my sister's wedding. She's 29, 5 years older than me, and has always been the golden child. Straight A's, full scholarship, corporate job in the city, never did anything wrong. Meanwhile, I've always felt like the extra piece on the board, close enough to belong, but just slightly different. We were raised by the same parents, in the same house, but I never really looked like any of them. Different hair, different nose, different everything, but I never questioned it. I figured genetics are weird and moved on, until the wedding. That's when I met Mark. Mark is her new husband. He's 45. Yeah, big age gap. It was a little shocking at first, but my parents weirdly supported it, almost too much, like they were trying to convince themselves more than us. But whatever. My sister looked happy, so I kept my opinions to myself. The first time I shook his hand, I felt this weird jolt in my chest, like my body recognized him before my brain did. I chalked it up to nerves, because weddings are overwhelming. But then he looked at me and said, "You look just like someone I used to know." And I swear to God, my stomach dropped. Because right after that, my mom, who was standing nearby, visibly stiffened, like her spine straightened on instinct. Mark tried to play it off like it was nothing, but I saw the way his eyes lingered, saw the way my mom pretended not to notice. And that's when I started to get this feeling, like something about him was familiar. Over the next few weeks, that feeling only got worse. I started digging, not on purpose at first, just little things. My mom kept talking about how nice it was that my sister found someone mature and grounded. My dad, who normally hates anyone new in the family, acted like Mark was his long-lost buddy. And then one day, I saw a photo. My grandma passed away recently, and I've been helping my mom sort through old family boxes. In one of them, there was a stack of photos from her early 20s. Tucked inside was a photo of her with a man, clearly not my dad. It was old, kind of faded, but the man looked exactly like a younger version of Mark. Same eyes, same dimples, same freaking smirk. I asked my mom who he was, trying to sound casual. She said, "Oh, just someone I used to work with." And then she snatched the photo out of my hands like I was holding a live grenade. I didn't sleep that night. That's when the puzzle pieces started moving on their own, and what I realized next made me feel like I was going to throw up. After that night, I couldn't get the photo out of my... I kept telling myself I was overthinking. Maybe the guy in the picture just looked like... Maybe I was being dramatic, but that uneasy feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. So I did something. I went through my mom's closet the next day while she was out running errands. I know, it was a huge invasion of privacy. I felt guilty the entire time, but I needed answers. Something about the way she acted when I saw that photo. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was panic. In the back of the closet, I found a small box tucked in an old suitcase. It was taped shut. I wouldn't have even noticed it had been wedged into a weird corner, almost like someone had tried to hide it. I ripped the tape off and opened it, half expecting it to be filled with receipts or old Christmas cards. It wasn't. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all handwritten, yellowing at the edges, all signed with the same name, Mark. Some were folded into tiny squares, like they'd been read and reread 100 times. Others were still in their envelopes, never opened. The earliest one I could find was dated a few months before I was born. They weren't romantic exactly, more emotional, raw, like someone trying to say everything they weren't allowed to say out loud. In one of the letters he wrote, "I know you're scared. I am too. But I want to be part of this, even if you won't let me." I didn't need a DNA test to know what he meant by this. I stopped reading. I couldn't breathe. I shoved everything back into the box, sealed it up, and put it back exactly where I found it. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely close the closet door. So, yeah, I think I know the truth now. Mark isn't just my sister's new husband. He's my father. But here's the part that really messes with my head. My sister doesn't know. She doesn't know she married the man who might have fathered me in secret. She doesn't know that the reason he was smiling at our wedding photos with so much pride wasn't just because he married her, but because he was standing next to me, his daughter. And I can't tell if this was all a coincidence, or if he knew exactly what he was doing. After I found the letters, I couldn't look at anyone in my family the same way. I started replaying every childhood memory, every family dinner, every "I love you" from my dad, wondering if it was all a lie. But the worst part was being around Mark. He was always around now. Family dinners, weekend get-togethers, my sister's apartment, it didn't matter. His face was suddenly everywhere, and every time he looked at me, I felt like he knew, like he was waiting for me to say something. Maybe I was just paranoid, but deep down, I don't think I was. Then last weekend, things took a weird turn. My sister invited the family over to her new place for a casual Sunday, just a small thing. Mom, Dad, me, and of course Mark. We all sat around their new kitchen island while my sister made her famous kale salad and talked about redecorating the guest room. That's when I froze, because Mark said something that made my skin crawl. He casually mentioned, How cool it would be if we did one of those DNA ancestry kits as a family. Just dropped it into the conversation like it was no big deal. My fork literally stopped midair. I glanced up and he was already looking at me. Not at my parents, not at my sister, just me, and there was this tiny smirk on his face, like he knew what he was doing. My mom immediately shut it down. Said something about not wanting strangers to have our genetic data, but her voice sounded forced. My dad nodded along like it was the most normal concern but I could tell even he was uncomfortable. My sister, oblivious as ever, just laughed and changed but Mark never broke eye contact, not once. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, was he testing me? Trying to provoke me? Did he suspect that I'd found the letters? Or worse, was he trying to make me crack? Because if he wanted me to go full meltdown mode in the middle of brunch, he almost succeeded. I haven't told anyone what I found, not even my best friend. I don't know how to. It's not just a secret. It's a bomb. And if I say one wrong word, I might blow up everything my family has built. But something happened after lunch that pushed things even further off the edge. When I got home, I checked my phone and saw a new friend request on Facebook from someone named Lily C. I didn't recognize the name. Her profile, my blood run. She looked just like me. Same eye, same mouth, same awkward left side dimple. When I clicked on her profile, her bio said, 24, musician, looking for my father. I stared at her profile for what felt like hours. Lily C. 24, musician, looking for my father. Same age as me, same face, same everything. I thought maybe it was some kind of scam account or a weird coincidence. But the more I looked, the more I realized this wasn't random. Her photos weren't AI generated or stolen. They were real. Casual shots, coffee shops, studio selfies, a few blurry concert clips, and all of them looked like they could have been pulled straight from my phone. She was me, or rather, she was like another version of me, living a life I didn't know existed. I couldn't stop shaking. I didn't accept the request. I didn't even message her. I just closed the app and sat there, staring at the wall in silence, wondering how many more pieces of my life had been hidden from me, because now I had questions I couldn't unthink. If Mark is my biological father, and if Lily is his daughter too, are we sisters? Half-sisters? Twins? Were we both secrets? Or was I the only one? I had no answers, only a gut-punching feeling that my entire life had been built on a foundation of lies. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife, I checked my email later that know why. I rarely check it outside of work stuff, but buried between my shopping stations and bank spam was a message I think we please read. From Lily. She had somehow found my I don't even want to know how long looking, but what she wrote in that message, it nearly knocked the Hi, I'm really sorry to message you. I don't want to scare you but I've been trying to find my biological father for the past 2 years. I was donor conceived. My mom never told me who he was, just that he was someone she met briefly before she left town. I recently did a DNA kit, and it said I had a half-sibling match. I think it's you. I couldn't breathe. I didn't respond. I just sat there, heart pounding, reading the email over and over again. A half-sibling match. That meant only one thing. We shared a parent, and it wasn't my mom. I knew she didn't give birth to 2 children in secret, which meant the connection was through him. Mark. My sister's husband, the man who'd married into our family just months ago, smiling through his vows while standing in front of 2 women, his daughter and his, maybe other daughter. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't eat the next day, and then things got worse, because 2 days later, I walked into my parents' house and found my mom sitting at the dining table, alone, crying. And on the table, that same shoebox, wide open. The moment I saw my mom sitting at the table, I froze in the hallway. She wasn't crying hard, but that silent, shaking kind of cry. The kind you don't want anyone to see, and she didn't even hear me come in. The shoebox was sitting in front of her, the same one I had snooped through just days before. The letters were all laid out across the table, like she had gone through every single one of them again, maybe for the first time in years. I almost turned around and left without saying a word, but then she looked up. Her eyes were red and puffy. She didn't jump. She didn't scold me for coming in unannounced. She just looked tired, like something inside her had cracked, holding it together for too long. She asked me to sit. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just sat down, heart pounding, because I could feel it coming. Something was about to be said that would change everything. And then she asked me the question I least expected. She said, "Did you find these?" That's it. Not, "How are you?" Not, "Why are you here?" Just, "Did you find these?" I didn't even try to lie. I just nodded. She looked down at one of the letters, then said quietly, "I always knew it would come out eventually." I think I stopped. She didn't give me a full explanation, just pieces. Bits of a story, how she'd had a brief relationship in her 20s before my dad, how she'd gotten pregnant, how the guy, Mark, had wanted to be involved at first, but it was messy and complicated, and her parents were strict, and back then, being a single mom was something that made people whisper. She met my dad when she was already a few months pregnant. He knew. He chose to step in. She said she never wanted me to feel different. That's why they never told me. They thought, if they loved me hard enough, if they raised me like their own, it wouldn't matter. And maybe it didn't, until now. She didn't mention the part where Mark married my sister. She didn't say his name out loud. I don't even think she realized I already knew that part. But I did. And now that I had her confirmation, it wasn't just a theory anymore. Mark is my biological father, and my sister, who's never known anything but the perfect family, married him. I don't even know what to call that. Fate? Tragedy? A sick, cosmic accident? But here's the kicker. My mom said something before I left that chilled me to the bone. She said, I begged him to stay away from you. That was the deal. That's why he never came around. So now I know two things for sure. Mark knew about me all along. He broke the deal. On purpose. And I'm starting to think marrying my sister wasn't a coincidence at all. After that conversation with my mom, I couldn't stop replaying her words. I begged him to stay away from you. That was the deal. That's why he never came around. She didn't even flinch when she said it. That's what scared me the most. It meant she knew. All these years. She knew exactly who he was, what he meant to me, and she just let it live in the dark. And now? He was in our family again. Like it was nothing. Like he hadn't broken the biggest boundary of all. But she didn't know the worst part. She didn't know about Lily. She didn't know about the half-sibling match, or the message that said, I think we might be related. So, that night, I wrote Lily back. I kept it short, told her I'd seen the DNA results too. Confirmed we were a match. And then I asked her one thing. Do you know who your biological father is? Did you ever find a name? She replied the next morning. No, just that my mom told me he was older, kind of out of her league. She said it was a one-night thing, but she mentioned he had a tattoo of an anchor on his left shoulder. That's all I know. An anchor. I didn't even have to guess. I'd seen that exact tattoo on Mark 2 weeks ago at a barbecue. He was wearing one of those sleeveless gym tees, laughing with my dad, flipping burgers like he hadn't destroyed an entire timeline, and now I couldn't get it out of my head. That tattoo connects both of us to the same man. Lily and I? Half-sisters. She doesn't know about my mom. She doesn't know that her dad, our dad, is now married to my sister. And here's where things really twisted. Later that afternoon, I was alone at my sister's apartment while she ran out to get groceries. I was helping her paint the guest room, pretending like everything was fine. Mark had just gotten home from work and walked in with usual smugness. Then he did something I'll never forget. He leaned in, lowered his voice, and said, You haven't said anything. Not a question, a statement. I turned toward him, brush in hand, and asked what he meant. He didn't blink. He just smiled and said, About the letters. My whole body went cold. He knew. He knew I found them. He knew I knew, and he didn't deny a thing. He just stood there, smiling. I didn't answer. I turned back to the wall, kept painting, and pretended like my hands weren't shaking. And then, just before he walked away, he said something. My blood stopped moving. Your mother made me promise to stay out of your life, but I never promised to stay out of hers. He meant my sister. After Mark said that, I never promised to stay out of hers. I stood there with my back to him, paintbrush frozen in midair, trying not to throw up on the wall. He didn't need to say my sister's name. We both knew who he meant. And the worst part? He said it so casually, like this was some game he'd been playing for years, and now he was finally winning. Like marrying my sister wasn't a coincidence. It was revenge, against my mother, the woman who had once begged him to disappear from my life, the woman who had raised me with another man, and never told anyone the truth. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Mark didn't marry my sister because he loved her. He married her because he could, because it was the one thing he wasn't supposed to do, the one boundary no sane person would ever cross. And that's exactly why he crossed it. He wanted to make my mom watch, but there was something else about what he said, something even more sinister. That smile he gave me, it wasn't pride, it was possession, like he still believed I was his, that I was part of this sick legacy he was building, whether I liked it or not. And the longer I stayed quiet, the more power he had. So that night, I made a decision. I met up with Lily. We picked a coffee shop halfway between our cities. She brought a notebook full of scribbled notes, DNA screenshots, even an old photo of her mom holding her as a baby. I didn't bring anything, just myself and 1,000 questions. And when I saw her in person, there was no denying it. She was my mirror. Same walk, same crooked smile, same nervous fidgeting. We didn't need a test to confirm it. We already knew. She told me she'd been looking for her father for 2 years, thinking maybe she'd find a kind man, someone who just never got the chance to be part of her life, someone who didn't even know she existed. I had to sit there holding my coffee with both hands to hide how badly I was shaking, and tell her the truth. He knew. And worse, he had a family. My family. I didn't tell her everything. Not yet. I couldn't. Not without destroying both of our lives in the same breath. But I did tell her this. He's not the man you're looking for. She stared at me for a long time, then nodded. She didn't cry. Neither of us did. But there was a silence that settled between us that said it all. And then, just as we were leaving, she asked a question I wasn't ready for. What are you going to do? I told her the truth. I don't know, but I think he's hiding more than either of us realize. I thought I had already uncovered the worst of it. I thought knowing Mark was my biological father, that he married my sister to hurt my mom, that he'd lied to everyone's face for months, that had to be the full extent of it, but I was wrong. Because Mark wasn't just a ghost from the past. He was still playing the game, and he was 2 steps ahead of all of us. After I met Lily, I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said to me that day at the apartment. Not just the creepy, I never promised to stay out of her, but something in his tone. Confident, smug, almost like he knew I wouldn't say anything, like he knew I couldn't, and he was right. So far I hadn't, but I was getting close. A couple of days later, my sister asked me to come over and help her pick out paint swatches for the kitchen. She was glowing, talking about babies now, how she wanted 2, maybe 3, how Mark had been talking about legacy and how he wanted to build something that would last. Legacy, that word made my stomach flip. While she was busy comparing shades of off-white, I asked to use the bathroom. I didn't go to the bathroom. I went into Mark's home office. The door wasn't locked. The man clearly didn't think I would look too closely, but I did, and it didn't take long. Inside one of the drawers was a black folder. No label, no tabs, just a bundle of loose documents, rubber banded together. I opened it. Inside were papers from years ago, not old school records or family documents, recent one, a background check, social media screenshot, employment history, notes about my schedule, even my apartment lease. He'd been tracking me, not just watching, but documenting, like I was a project, a file, something he needed to stay updated on. And buried in the back of the folder was a printed copy of the DNA results from Lily's test. He knew about her too. He knew she existed. He knew we were a match. He knew exactly who she was, which means he probably saw the message she sent me. Maybe he even sent her that friend request using a burner account to bait me into opening the door. He was manipulating both of us. And still, somehow he was playing the doting husband to my sister, making dinner, building shelves, talking about starting a family. I put everything back the way I found it and walked out like nothing had happened. But my mind was already racing. This wasn't just a bad secret. This was calculated, and suddenly it hit me. Maybe marrying my sister wasn't about revenge at all. Maybe it was about control. And if I didn't act fast, he was going to wrap all of us in it. I couldn't sleep after I found the folder. It wasn't just creepy, it was intentional. Mark had been collecting information on me like I was some stranger he needed leverage over. Not his daughter, not his stepdaughter, just a name to man, a variable to control. And Lily? He knew about her too. Which meant he'd probably seen her message, seen mine. Maybe he was even monitoring my emails, watching what I did, waiting to see if I'd blow his secret wide open. The thing is, I almost did. I nearly told my mom. I almost warned my sister. But every time I pictured it, her face falling, her future shattering, I froze. She didn't just love him, she believed in him. And Mark? He was good at this. Too good. So I realized something. I couldn't just tell them. I had to show them. There needed to be proof. Undeniable. Inescapable. No way he talks his way out of it proof. So I made a plan. First I reached out to Lily. Told her everything. All of it. Who Mark really was. Who he married. What I'd found in his office. She didn't speak for a full minute. Then she asked just one thing. What do we do? I told her the truth. I didn't know. But I had an idea. We met up again, this time in my apartment. No phones. No laptops. Nothing that could be tracked. Just 2 sisters sitting across from each other, building a trap. We printed the DNA results. We pulled the emails. She even had a voicemail from her mom, where she casually described the man with the anchor tattoo who disappeared after one night. Then I added photos of Mark from my sister's wedding. His face, his tattoo, screenshots of his Facebook profile, his LinkedIn. I added the copies of my background check, taken straight from his drawer. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Enough to tell a story, and then I asked Lily for one last favor. I had her call Mark. I stood there holding my breath while she dialed his number. She was nervous, but she held her voice steady. She said she'd found some new information. She didn't say how. She told him she wanted to meet, face to face, just to talk. And Mark? He agreed. Too quickly. He asked her to meet the next evening, in a coffee shop on the edge of town, the same one my sister used to work at in college. I don't think that was a coincidence. He told her to come alone, but she wouldn't be alone, because I'd be there, and this time, we'd be recorded. The next day felt like waiting for a storm to hit. Lily and I barely spoke. We ran through the plan over and over again, trying to account for anything that might go wrong. We'd scoped out the cafe, where the cameras were, which tables had the clearest audio, the exits, the shadows. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was survival. Mark had proven he could manipulate people, lie effortlessly, and worm his way into a family he had no business touching. If he was capable of that, what else? By 4:50 p.m., we were parked across the street from the cafe. 5:03 p.m., he arrived. Same smug walk, Same fake calm. He wore a sweater that covered the anchor tattoo, but we didn't need it. His face said it all. Lily went in alone. I stayed behind, eyes locked on them through the front window, my phone recording from my pocket, connected to a tiny mic she wore on her collar. He smiled when he saw her. She didn't smile back. What happened next still plays in my head like a movie. Lily started with small talk, barely. Then she said it. "I know who you are." Mark blinked, then gave this weird, amused laugh. He asked what she meant, still pretending. Then she pulled out the envelope. DNA results. Photos. Everything. She slid it across the table and whispered, "You're my father, and you're married to your other daughter." He didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Then, just like that, he smiled, like it was some kind of twisted game and we'd finally caught up to his level. And then he said, "God, I still remember this." "So you figured it out. Took you long enough." That's when I walked in. I sat down at their table without a word and stared him straight in the face. He looked at me like I was a painting he'd created. No panic, no apology, just pride. I said one thing. "Why?" He leaned back like he'd been waiting for the question. "Because she took you away from me, and I wanted to see if you'd come back." He meant my mom. He meant me. And he meant this whole mess was intentional. He knew what he was doing. He sought my sister out. He pursued her, married her, came back into our lives through the one person who never knew what he was capable of. I got up from the table, heart pounding, and said, "We're done. Not just with him. With all of it." I reported him the next day. Not for a crime, though morally he should be locked up, but for fraud. Lily's mother had proof he'd lied on legal forms regarding paternity, which affected her birth certificate and medical history. Small crack, but it was enough to open something up. He's being investigated now. His job found out. His reputation is circling the drain. As for my sister, I told her the truth 2 nights later. It destroyed her. She didn't believe me at first. Who would? But when she saw the photos, the letters, the DNA results, she just sat there, completely still, like her whole life had been unplugged from the wall. She moved out of their apartment that same night. My mom had a breakdown when it all came out. Not because of what I did, but because of what she didn't. Because of what she let happen. By burying the truth for decades and trusting a man who never earned it. Our family is fractured. Maybe it always was. But at least now the lies are gone. As for me, I've cut contact with Mark. Forever. Lily and I talk every day. It's weird and raw, and sometimes we don't know what to say. But we're trying. We're rebuilding something. Not because of him, but in spite of him. The truth didn't set us free, but it gave us a place to start.